thought it was 8. Oh, counting you. Yeah.
I'm number 8. Yeah. She looks awake. Yeah, she's doing well. Sarah.
Oh, Sarah, I thought you were talking about me.
And you. You look awake. Oh, funny. All good? Yep. Kia ora, morena. Welcome, everybody, to our first Community and Natural Environment Committee meeting for the triennium. Before we get started, our GM, Helen, will open with karakia.
Whakataka hau ki te uru, whakataka hau ki te tonga, kia mākina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai, I he ake ana te atakura, he tiho, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, Māori ora.
Thank you.
Do you want the English?
Sure.
Cease, O winds of the south, west and of the south, let the bracing breezes flow over the land and the sea, let the red-tipped dawn come with a sharpened edge, a promise of a glorious day.
Thank you, Helen. All right, shall we start with apologies? We do have quorum for now, so no one's allowed to leave. Thanks, Ewan. So we've got a few, Mayor Southgate's away, Councillor Louise. We've got Sarah, Jeff, and Milena on Zoom at the moment. Councillor Donovan will be in a bit later. Have I missed anyone? Okay.
Kesh, I sent through an email just earlier this morning. I'll be a partial apologies. I've got a hearing at 10:30, so I'll need to leave just before then.
Okay. Yeah, he should be. Yeah. No, we're all good. Yep. So, Councillor Ewan's moved.
Is Moko an apology as well?
As far as I'm aware, I have not received apologies from Moko, but I will chase that up and see what I can find out.
And so we currently still have a quorum, right? 4, 5, 6, 7,
8.
9.
I'm 8. Yeah.
Yes.
They don't count.
Quorum in the room.
Oh, so
Yes.
the quorum now is 7 in the chamber?
8.
Quorum is 8. Yes.
Andrew.
Okay, Andrew, just.
Yes, so we do currently have a quorum. Unfortunately, those on Zoom don't count for, because we do need a physical quorum. However, at this stage, we do have a quorum.
Just a question for clarity through you, Chair. So they don't count as quorum, but they can vote, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. That's right. Yes. Any other questions? Nope. Councillor Ewan's moved. I've seconded. All in favour? That's moved. Confirmation of the agenda. All those in favour? Against? Cool. Declarations of interest. Do you want to pop your mic on?
Sorry, I've got a declaration. Kelly Pike, who's speaking today, is a relation. So
No.
but I don't believe it conflicts my voting. Thanks.
Thanks, Emma.
Chair, I've got an interest in C1, but I don't believe it's a conflict.
All right. Noted. All good? Yep. So we can move to public forum. And we do have Kelly Pike with us this morning. Morning, Kelly.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Kelly Pike tōku ingoa. I'm excited to be here today, speaking to this new committee and the new council. Tēnā koe to our new Māori ward councillors, Moko and Milena, and of course my newly elected friends. I'm looking forward to both supporting and holding you to account this term. The last time I was here was to support investing in a pocket park on Kent Street, which I'm happy to say quickly happened. In that public forum, the issue of the Frankton Neighbourhood Plan gathering dust was raised, I think by Dave Mack. I'm here to speak to the update and want to first thank Claire Thorne for making time to go through each action with me recently. The progress made on key outcomes is a testament to your staff knowing what is needed in the city and working within the budgets that they have. Not so much a result of political leadership, though I recognise that it has changed 3 times since 2016. The plan itself was not funded, nor did it sit under any team's direct responsibility as far as I can see. Therein lies a problem. If you're going to spend, I'm guessing, 100K on a plan, you should probably back it up. Maybe something to consider in the future. Before I go on, I know the report says connectivity by biking from the station is in progress, but can you please double check with Martin Parks to make sure it's funded? That said, let's look to the future. There are 4 areas I'd like to bring to your attention today. The first one, how serious are we about retaining the built heritage and character of Frankton? Commerce Street has undergone massive changes since the 2016 plan. Most of a block was demolished for a new build, and I hear the same is happening on the other side of Commerce Street soon. As well as that, we have the largest intact collection of railway houses in New Zealand. But did you know a railway house on Rifle Range Road was removed from its section recently? Are we doing enough to protect that slice of rail and housing history? Now, a small but visually impactful thing. A colour palette was supposed to be created for Frankton. If done, it could give building owners, artists and activators something to work with, so I'd like to see that progressed, alongside meaningful protection of Frankton's heritage in the district plan. 2, I'm not aware of any real progress by council in sharing stories of the whenua. That would look like storyboards, tours or art. I say stories of the land so that it is clear that Frankton's history did not start with the Jolly family and the railway lines. History tells us where we've been, informs the future, and connects us in the present. A sense of place, belonging, and identity directly relate to community wellbeing, the kaupapa of this committee. 3, placemaking and activation creates spaces people feel safe in, welcome in, and enjoy being. The local creative community can step up to do this if supported. We did this with the Frankton Festival, by far one of the most rewarding projects I've volunteered for. I would like Frankton to have a dedicated funding for placemaking and activations led by the community. How can we work together to make that possible? 4, where's the green space? Apart from the pocket park on Kent, it's all tar seal and concrete heavy. Can we reclaim some of the some green space for gardens or parks? Can we introduce more porous surfacing to reduce flooding and temperatures? Frankton is flood prone. How can we let nature do its thing for climate adaptation, mitigation and for wellbeing? Finally, I am one person doing what I can to keep Frankton on your radar. I've lived in Dinsdale for 12 years, worked in Frankton for 6. It's my hood. I care deeply for the tamariki who live here and want to get this right for them. I know I'm not alone in wanting Frankton to be a better place, but I'm alone today because neighbourhoods like Frankton, Norton and Melville don't have the same resources to organise people to come and speak to you. I'm a weird anomaly and fortunately have a workplace that supports me to make time to present. So I'll be back during the annual and long-term plans asking for investment in He Pou Manawa Ora, activations in placemaking, finishing the pocket park on Kent Street and a climate-friendly neighbourhood. I'll even try to get my head around the district plan for protecting Frankton's heritage. What I need from you today is to consider how you can make sure suburbs like Frankton get on and stay on the agenda in the absence of a neighbourhood plan. There isn't always a squeaky wheel, but it doesn't mean that oil isn't needed. Really weird fossil fuel analogy, but anyway. Finally, a shameless plug. If it's been a while since you visited Frankton or Dinsdale, Bike Waikato are doing a group ride of the Boone Street murals this Saturday from 10. It's a good way to check out where the cycleways are as well. You can register via the Bike Waikato website. And don't forget, Frankton is quirky, you'll like it.
Thank you. Any quick questions? Did I go over? No? Cool.
Just a very quick one. Thanks, Kelly, for your presentation. Would you be comfortable with a targeted rate for Frankton? I'm sure you're aware of our current deficit of $38 million.
Very much aware of it.
So we either need to increase the rates
Yep.
or cut spending,
Get it.
or a combination of the two. One of the tools is a targeted rate where we say for the specific purpose.
Yep.
How would you feel about that?
I don't feel answering that on behalf of the businesses. And I think the thing to remember for Frankton as well, a lot of the people who live, work and play there are charities and volunteers for the op shops. So Vinnie's, Red Cross, all of that. So I don't feel comfortable suggesting that there's a targeted rate without proper engagement with those people. But personally, I'm on a lower income than all of you, but I understand that, and this isn't popular, but sometimes you can't keep the rates down. It kicks a can down the road and makes things more expensive. So I think the real problem is the lack of political leadership where we keep the rates down to keep ourselves in the council chamber, which is to the detriment of all of us.
Thank you.
Not popular, but
Thank you for coming in, Kelly.
Thanks.
Always a pleasure to see you. And we look forward to seeing you again, annual plan and long-term plan. Welcome, Councillor Mark. Can we move on to the chair's report now? All right, so we'll move on to item 5 with the chair's report. There is a recommendation to go up, which Carmen will pop up now, because we need to formalize it more. So you'll have to have a look at that in a minute. I don't need to speak to it. I'm assuming that you've read it, but I'm happy to take any questions. Can you guys see that?
Madam Chair, a couple of questions. We've heard from an early presentation that Council has a terrible habit of developing plans and policies, and it's like an incremental creep. We never then put funding, but then we have an obligation to put funding, and that's why we're in the hole that we're in. What sort of quantum are you talking about in terms of staff hours and any outside consultants to do this development of the Youth Action Plan?
Helen can give you...
And sorry, this is part of your report, right?
Yeah. So I can answer that first.
And secondly, as a procedural question, it's unusual that an action to develop a policy or a plan originates from a chair's report. Usually it's gone through the proper bureaucratic process, a staff report is presented, there's a workshop.
Yeah.
So why have we decided to create this mechanism?
So first question, actually the same answer for both. This report is suggesting that I feel we need a plan, but it's to say, staff, can you come back to us so that we can have that discussion of, do we need a plan? What would the costs be? What would the staff time be? So that discussion is to happen. This is just saying that I personally feel that we need a youth action plan. So it hasn't started any work. There's a briefing that will happen quite soon-ish, and that's when that conversation will take place.
Right, thank you. And the second part of my question was, how many hours are being allocated to doing this preliminary work to analyse the overall strategy? I mean, how many staff hours?
So we're doing the scoping currently.
Yeah.
So
that's staff resource.
Yeah, that is staff resource. Our staff work, and this is what our staff do anyway in terms of working with youth. So we're having a few conversations with some stakeholders around to work out what's required if we do an action plan, so that when we come to you, we can give you what those hours are. I don't know what the exact hours are to do the scoping, but
Madam Chair, I ask this question because frequently we're told, and rightly so, that this organisation is under the pump, that we're stressed in every aspect, and I've heard it from community, I've specifically heard it from you, Helen, and that we've got a lot on. So can I just have confirmation, Helen, of all the things that we've got on and that your staff are under the pump?
Yep,
You've got the capacity
yep.
for your team to drop what they're doing now to focus on this?
Yeah, so it's not so much about dropping what they're doing. So one of the reasons for doing a plan is so that we know where we target our resource. At the moment, we know this is an area where there's gaps, and we're currently, our staff are kind of being pulled in lots of different directions. So the idea of doing a plan is to pull some of that together so that we know where we can focus our attention and work with other community stakeholders, where the funding goes, those kinds of things. And so that's not so much that they're dropping everything, because they currently work in this space already. It's around how we bring some planning and coordination to that so that we're putting our focus in the right area.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Ewan. Councillor Max. Sorry, I'm getting used to knowing where to look.
Kia ora, and thank you, Chair Kesh, and welcome to your first chairing meeting.
Thank you.
My question's related to those of Councillor Wilson, and asks, is there any crossover in the Youth Action Plan with work that might be coming out of or within the Mayor's Crime and Safety Task Force?
I would assume so. So that we don't really know too much about the crime task force just now, but this would be an overarching plan for the whole city. If the crime task force can resource some of those actions, perfect, but this is more for guidance for all stakeholders throughout Hamilton. We've got lots of funders wanting to throw money at gaps in the youth sector, and so this is to identify those gaps.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that? Yep.
Madam Chair, just a procedural question. Can we split A off from the rest? So we put A first as a single motion, and then put the balance as a second phase? Because I want to support, obviously, accepting the report, but I'd like to potentially not support the rest.
Is that okay? Yep.
Thank you.
Can do. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Angela.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
Just for clarity on B, to the General Manager. So for further discussion on the development of a youth action plan, what does further discussion look like? Is that a briefing? Is that another report to this committee?
It's both of those things, so a briefing and then
Okay.
a report to committee.
Yeah. So it'll give us an outline and a context of if we want to develop a youth action plan, what that might look like. Will that include A, the cost of developing a plan, and B, the potential of the projects involved and the quantum of cost there? And then second question, that will then go through to LTP to be considered against everything else?
If there are any financial implications, then yes.
Okay, yeah, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. So I will move that. Can I get a seconder? Anyone? Councillor Anna? Pardon? Yep. Oh, because they're two separate motions. Yep, are you happy to second both of those? Yeah. Perfect. I will speak to it just very shortly, for a short time. So I have, probably like many of you, have many conversations out in the community. We all know that there's lots of people wanting to help in the youth space. We see a lot of positivity in the youth space. There's a lot of negative feeling out there in terms of youth crime and how do we fix youth, how do we keep youth engaged, how do we keep them out of trouble. But I'd like to take this to a higher level where we go, what are we actually doing right now? You've got all of these organizations who are trying to do good work to keep the youth engaged. So what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? Where are the gaps? Philanthropic funders, community groups, government funding, money's coming in, but where is the best place to put it? So that's where I see a youth action plan coming. That's where I see a youth action plan can actually work to everyone's advantage and to give us all some direction. Our own council team does amazing work with what they've got in many spaces, including the youth area. And this is work that they're already doing, business as usual. But again, it gives them clearer direction of where to put in that energy. Kaute Pacifica, it was good to see lots of familiar faces at the recent Fale opening. It's amazing. If you haven't been down there, please visit. I'm sure Rachel Corrales would love to have you down there. And it's also good to see lots of faces at community events. So I encourage you to keep doing that and popping it on your social media, sharing it wide. It's sending out a really good, positive vibe in the community, and that's what we're all about. So yes, I'm looking forward to a good triennium to discuss some challenging issues, but at the end of the day, it's the well-being of the community is what we're here to make sure we improve. Thank you. Councillor Ewan. Oh, nope, Deputy Mayor, sorry.
Do you want to, does Anna,
Anna,
as the
did you-
seconder want to go next? It's usually the way we do it, but you don't have to. No? Okay. Thanks, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'd make a couple of comments. Firstly, it's not probably what you meant to say, but Chair, you said we need to fix youth. I think no, yeah. I think young people these days are much smarter than young people of my generation, and they would probably say they need to fix some of us and our decision making. So I think they're quite capable and incredibly smart. I have a complete understanding of Councillor Wilson's concern around this being in the Chair's report. I guess Councillor Wilson and myself have been around this table for a long time and we understand the process. It's a wide purview for a Chair's report to go straight to let's develop a strategy when we haven't had an initial discussion. So I accept that, and he's correct and accurate in his feelings on that. However, I support the intention, and I support your intention, Chair, to raise this. In a perfect world, I would like to see our Youth Council back. I would like to see our Elders Council back, I think it was called, our Disability Council. I liked those things, and I've always advocated for them to come back. So this is not what this is. I also wouldn't want to see a youth action plan having us reinvent the wheel. There's some incredible organisations out there doing some fantastic stuff, particularly our community houses in the youth space. So if we can prioritise the work that we're doing in our ComDev department to enhance and support the great work that they're doing, and also whatever resources we use as business as usual to make sure that there's a youth lens over it, then I'm all supportive of that. But I do want to see costs up front. I have a lot to say on the next item with the Frankton and the Hamilton East plan, being the fact that they were both my ideas. And Councillor Wilson again is right. If we don't fund this stuff, we go in with eyes half open, and that's not good for anyone because we don't achieve our outcomes. So I will be supporting both motions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Look, first of all, I recognise and respect the fact that you're passionate in the community field and you're surrounded by very passionate advocates who work for this council. And so I I fully understand the motivation behind what's being proposed here. My problem is simply we as an organisation are already stretched. We have a history of planting these little seeds which start as working groups, then there's a plan, strategy, then we approve the policy, but we don't put any money towards it, right? And then 2 years later or 3 years later we go, oh, we've got this plan and policy, we now must fund it. And Paumanawa Ora, just every aspect of this organisation does this, and the consequences are often hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And in this particular area, when you look at what community already does in terms of the number of staff, the funding regimes, the initiatives, what the private sector does and the community organisations do, you have to wonder why council feels that we need to create this overarching strategy. At the end of the day, I understand your motivation, but I'm concerned yet again that we're dabbling and spending ratepayers' funds when a lot of this work's already being done. So look, today I'm going to support this going through to a working group, and then I'm going to look forward to really challenging you in every step of the way for you to explain to me why you think maybe you need more funding. Maybe out of this will be one of the first working groups or policies that come back and say, actually, we don't need more funding, we just need to structure things differently and we need to cooperate more. Wouldn't that be an amazing, refreshing occurrence for local government, that you go through the process and you actually come up with a strategy that engages other community groups and doesn't require the ratepayer to pick up the fund. So I look forward to hearing how Helen and her team will do that and produce a better outcome. So I'm going to support you today after hearing my good friend Councillor Angela encouraging me to do so. But I'm going to be the person who simply keeps saying, have we got this right? Are we sure we need to be doing it?
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. We'll go to Zoom and then come back to Ryan, if that's all right. Councillor Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, I think there's a bit of an irony here that we're discussing this plan on the same agenda where we're talking about retiring the Hamilton East plan and the Frankton plan because we haven't got the resources or time or money to follow through on them. And I think Councillor Wilson's right that this is an organisation under siege. Really, we've only got so much resources. We're struggling to keep afloat with what we've already got, and here we are bringing on something new. And by approving this today, it's going to lead on to something else. It's going to lead on to something else, and this is how we get ourselves into trouble. So I have got concerns about it. And I'm not for a moment arguing against a need for this type of thing. But I think we start trying to be all things to all people, and we just take on too much. So I'm wary about this because at some point along the way it's going to cost, and we're not going to be able to afford it the way things are at the moment. I'm sorry if that sounds negative, but I do think that that this is not something we should be encouraging, particularly at the moment. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Jeff. Councillor Ryan.
Thanks, Chair. I feel you've been a bit hard done by so far by everyone's response, Kesh. As a chair, there was a comment made that it's a wide purview of a chair report. The community is a wide purview, and I think everything that you brought up is well within the remit, to be quite frank. And as a chair, we've got responsibility to make initiatives and to highlight those gaps and to identify them and have the discussion. Whether they go forward or not, that's politics. There's no cost being associated with this. It's just a working group to flesh up. And to Ewan's point, we might even find that it's about a restructure, but we don't know if we don't at least look. I disagree slightly with Jeff's comments around the Hamilton East and Frankton plan retiring for not enough time, money or resource. If you read the report, they say they're retiring because they're done, they're underway, or they're covered off by other plans. So I think, because I was concerned when I saw the word retired in there as well, but I think it's important that we at least give oxygen to these opportunities you're talking about. I know community leaders have said for the last 6 to 9 years what's happening to the youth and the rangatahi of Hamilton in terms of council leadership. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'm happy to support you in at least exploring it within the BAU structure.
Thanks. Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Max.
Thanks, Chair. And I hold a similar view to Councillor Hamilton with regard to the ability to get more information on this. There's some really great examples of council working in a really collaborative way, bringing different partners and different groups together to be able to focus on issues of the day, to be able to then attract further investment and attention from funders and other interest groups through that kind of focus. And from what I'm understanding, that's the potential of further work on this. I think a really good example of that is the Mayor's Task Force that was to look at safety and crime. And we know that there's $1 million from government coming to sit in some of the solutions around this, and that some of that may be applied to a specific youth focus, and that this is a great way to be able to show that we as political leaders have a real keen interest in making sure that the well-being of our youngest and most vulnerable Hamiltonians and the folk who are going to be the leaders in our city in the future have the very best start and the very best resources in behind it. So I will be supporting the motion that suggests we get more information so that we can build better decisions based on that. Kia ora, and thank you.
Thanks, Max. I'll come back to you, Councillor Andrew. We're just going to go to Councillor Malena.
Morena kia tātou. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Oh, awesome. I just would like to say I support this motion as well. We really need to investigate how best we can represent and furthermore encourage rangatahi to have a voice within our council in ways. I agree with Max's idea in terms of kōrero in terms of councils working together. So we have the Tuia project, and we're lucky to have 2 representing Hamilton City Council this year. Spoke with councillors from the other councils within our district last week who are happy to also bring together the representatives from Waikato, Waipa, Waikato Regional Council to help bring that voice too. So I'm just saying, bringing this to your attention because there's that. I understand and I feel what everyone's saying in terms of the fiscal component. So I just thought I'd put that out there this morning and let you all know that's what's happening to further enhance and tautoko the voice of rangatahi. Morena.
Thank you. And Councillor Andrew.
My thoughts are along the lines of what other people have been saying. But because this is a motion to direct the council staff to scope out a report on this, this is our first and only opportunity to give a bit of direction on that scope, which I think the message is coming across that if you scope out a report that needs lots of money spent on it, is going to have a hard time. But so if the scoping can be directed at what council can do to facilitate what other groups who have some money are doing, then I think that will come back with a positive response. So I think that message has been passed on very clearly, and that's why I would support this motion. And I've always seen the council should be having a role in facilitating rather than financing things. So this could be a very good example of that.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? You guys good? Yes? Councillor Emma.
Thank you, Chair Kesh. I'm very aware that our rangatahi are our future and need a voice in our council. I don't believe this is a new initiative, and that, as Deputy Mayor Angela has said, that we have previously had youth council, which is one way of implementing some of this this focus and getting this voice heard. And I understand it's successful as Councillor Thompson was herself a youth councillor as well. I'm hearing that what I'm hearing is that Helen's team are already doing work in this area, and that will allow us to better focus this resource. And but I do understand what Councillor Ewan is saying around what is it we can achieve within the existing budget and how we can enhance that. So I will support this motion, and I look forward to the report and what see what we can achieve and how we can support our youth. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Emma. Councillor Anna.
A lot to say, but just to tautoko what you've put in your report, Kesh, and also just to acknowledge what you've said, Helen, that our staff are so engaged already in this space, and if anyone has the opportunity to go to the H-Town Youth Connects kind of hui and see that in operation, you know, it means we've got the relationships and connections already, and I see this youth action plan as just bringing more of what we're doing to the fore as well as what's happening already. So. And some gaps. So, I do listen and hear the concerns around costs, so I'm sure there'll be some upfront conversations about that as we go along. Kia ora.
Thanks, Anna. And Councillor Mark.
Right, seeing as everyone else has had a go, I thought I might as well chime in now. So I don't want to be the odd one out. Look, I'll support the motion as well. I think what this brings with it, first and foremost, is or what could fall out of this would be quite a positive outcome, is a big piece of accountability, and I think that's where we need to, I like Andrew's word that he used before, facilitating as opposed to financing. So full support. Good stuff, Kesh. Well done.
Thanks, Mark. I don't have much else to add, apart from Councillor Andrew, you hit it on the head when you said facilitator, which is exactly the word I had in mind when I started this discussion. This is just an opportunity to have a conversation. Personally, I see council being the facilitator in this space. Like you've all said, there's a lot already happening in the youth sector, but we're about improving outcomes. That's what we want to see. At the end of the day, we want to see our youth better off. But to achieve those outcomes, we actually need a clear plan to get there. And this is what I'm talking about. It's not about spending more money or, you know, worsening our deficit. We're well aware of the hole we're in. But we need a plan if we want to achieve better. And so that's the conversation yet to be had. Thank you. So I've moved and Anna has seconded. And we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Sorry, we have to break it up, don't we? Yeah. So.
Keep it the way it is, because some still may want to vote against your motion, but at least if you get your report, I think everybody will support that.
So we'll go to the first one for A. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Oh, that's your part, isn't it?
So we do just need to confirm with those on Zoom that they were for the first motion. Yes? Brilliant. That motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you, Carmen. And then we'll go to the next part for B, C, and D. All those in favour? Any against?
The motion is carried, noting Councillor Taylor's dissenting.
Okay, thank you.
Vote, from a governance perspective, that we have online voters. Does that need to be?
And how they voted, yeah, because we don't see otherwise.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm happy to announce that Councillor Huaki and Councillor Thompson have both voted for the motion. Cool. Thanks, Carmen. All right, we will crack on to item 6. And we've got Julie and Claire to present.
I'm Lorena, Chair Kish, and councillors, Julie Clausen, Toko Ingoa. I'm Julie Clausen, and I have with me Claire Fawn. So Claire's done the hard work in preparing this report in response to a request for there to be an update on the status of the Hamilton East and Franklin neighbourhood plans. I'll just make a few initial comments. So both of these plans were developed back in 2016, were initiatives that were led by elected members and the Mayor at the time. And they were really about trying to support the identity of these unique areas within Hamilton, these unique neighbourhoods. One of the things in the plan, there were a list of actions, and those actions were either assigned to council, to community groups, or business identities, and sometimes a combination of both. If we look at the update that we've prepared, and Claire's worked across the business to look at we pulled all of the actions out of the plan and then worked with the business to get an update of where those things are. Just if you look at them, the Hamilton East Neighbourhood Plan had 45 actions in it. Of that, we have completed 11. 20 are underway, so those are things where things are happening now and will still keep progressing for some time. There are 3 that are partly completed. And what we mean by partly completed is when we look at the action, there are bits that we have done, that we can control, and we have done those, but there's a component to that action that is something that is outside our responsibility and has not been completed. So there's 3 of those that are, have a mixed delivery. We had 7 partner projects, and where possible we've gone to those partners and asked for an update of those, and there are 4 that have not been completed. When we look at Frankton, there were 31 actions in total. 4 have been completed, 14 are underway, 3 are partly completed, 4 are partner projects, and there are 6 not completed. In the report, we put forward 2 options. One is to continue the plans and retire them when all projects are completed, and the second one is to retire now. So maybe if I just talk through why the staff recommendation is to retire now. First of all, the plans are 8 years old, and there's been significant changes in our environment in that time. And to give you just a couple of examples, we have the MPSUD, and that has required a change in the way our city will grow, and that's directed by the central government. We have also done a lot of work as a council on our district plan, and we have several plan changes going through at the moment that will also have an impact on these areas. Secondly, mode shift. Our thinking around mode shift has changed in the last 8 years significantly, in both our thinking in Mohokotahi and the central government's thinking. So there are a number of actions in those plans that related to mode shift, where we've either delivered those things, or we are most probably looking at other ways to deliver those through things like the SURF funding or some initiatives through our climate change. And the third thing I think that's quite important at this point in time is that as we're progressing forward, the concept of placemaking is gaining a lot more visibility again. And you can see that through the Future of Local Government report, where they talk about the importance of community being involved in their local area, both through placemaking but also through their community voice of how money is spent in their local area. We at Council are doing a lot of work in some of our areas, and particularly in the city central city plan, which is being developed on a placemaking approach. So we are starting to move in that way, and I think that's where we would like to go in the future as well. So just in summary, I know there is some concern about what do we do about the projects that have not been completed, and we're happy to take direction from elected members on those. Some of the things we could talk about is if we can definitely keep the plan running and keep working on looking at resolution for projects, or we can pull those things out that are really important that we still think need to be addressed and report back as those separately. But happy to answer questions. Well, I won't answer questions. Claire, Claire has been doing the hard work, plus we have lots of people in the room who will also be able to help us answer questions.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Angela, questions?
I've got a motion that I've sent through that Councillor Sarah is going to second to address two things that might help us not go through every project line by line today. And if you put that motion up on the board, I'm happy to just explain the intention to help members.
That'll be good.
So the first one there, that staff bring back information to a briefing to discuss the actions in both plans. Then if we can give a steer of the projects, top 3, top 5 of each plan, for staff to bring back to the LTP discussions along with costs. That would also give us the opportunity to, quite frankly, debate some of the things where the staff have put partly done or completed, where I may disagree given I created particularly the Frankton one. And then the second one is that staff report back to the committee regarding how suburban area plans might be developed to enhance and protect special character areas in the city, including Frankton and Hamilton East. And that's just a result of the previous discussion as well. You know, there are other areas in the city that with this 3x3 are going to be destroyed. I'd like the conversation, if there's support, to understand what we could do, because both the Frankton and the Hamilton East special character areas is now being removed from the district plan. The heritage houses are there, but by deleting, retiring these plans, we have no mechanism to say that Frankton and Hamilton East are special. So that's the intention of both of those things. Are you happy with that? You're smiling at me, so that means full support, doesn't it, Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you, Angela. And did you have any questions for Julie?
No, because I'd like to have an informal discussion with.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, can I ask a question to Councillor
Sure.
Angela? Would it be appropriate for both of those to come back to both of those points?
Yeah.
To come back to a briefing first?
Well, yeah.
And then we can have more of a
Yeah, actually, that's
wider
probably
discussion.
a better integrated discussion. Yeah.
And then bring back a report to the committee after that.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah. Carmen can reword with her magic skills.
Cool.
Thanks.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Cash. Claire, how often do you review a plan in this area?
Maybe if I can answer that, Councillor Ewan. So when we look at we have a mixture of strategies, plans and policies. Policies, we'll start with the easy one. Policies tend to have a defined review period in them. Our strategies and plans traditionally have not stated a defined review period. One of the challenges that we've had that we haven't done well has been bringing back regular reports to the elected members on the delivery of the outcomes of our strategies. That is something that we now have Claire. Claire's been with us for 18 months. That's one of the core components that Claire's now going to start working on with the business so that we can bring back these reports to you. So in terms of have we done it? No, not well. We have done it very occasionally, but and some plans we do come back regularly, but it's not as cohesive and consistent as we would like.
When there's a plan and there's financial transaction approved under the plan, prior to those projects being undertaken, is there a review of where things may have moved on prior to those quantums being spent?
Yes, so maybe I can answer that in two parts. The first one is when a plan is developed, and there is an action plan associated with it, the funding for that has to go through a long-term plan or an annual plan variation. So that's how plans and strategies get funded through that process. And the second question you had was, do we check and see if that's still the right way to spend the money? That is a really good example in the review we've done here, where we've noted there's some items that we've called partially completed because we think we don't need to do a component of it. So staff are saying, yes, it was an action, but we no longer need to do that action because something else has happened that's replaced the need for that action. It's not the right place to spend the money on now.
Right. And where would you report that back? So I'm trying to understand how we found ourselves in a position where we've created a plan 8 years ago, and then now you're coming to say, well, some aspects are now so outdated. I'm just trying to understand the accountability over the last 8 years. When did you last come back to the committee saying things have changed, we no longer think this is the way to do things?
As we indicated at the beginning, when these plans were created, they weren't assigned to a specific committee. If you look at your terms of reference for your committees now, you will see that the strategies are all allocated to the committees. So going forward, there is an expectation that those strategies will be reported back to the committee on a regular basis, and I suppose that's up to the chair to decide what that frequency is. So these ones, I think, must be...
Fell through the cracks?
Yes, yes.
Right, because that was a polite way of saying, we fixed the problem now, but for the last 8 years, we haven't been managing it.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe Councillor Angela might be able to help me because my memory's a bit vague, but I remember when I first started here, which was 7 years ago, we did bring quite a comprehensive report back to council across a lot of our plans and strategies when it was still under your strategy and policy committee.
That was the mechanism for governance oversight. One term we had the strategy and policy committee, which had constant report backs of every strategy and every policy, but now we since then we've divvied them up to sit under committees, and it has come back to council previous chairs community committee a couple of times, but usually on the request of elected members. Yeah.
Thank you.
Increase the...
You can, are the
Increase the
buttons working
motion
on
thing.
this as well? You can, on your little screen, you can bring it up as well.
Double tap.
We're just going to go to Councillor Sarah and then come back to Anna.
Yeah.
Oh, nope, she
Except
has just
there's
popped
nothing
out.
on there.
Councillor Anna.
Just firstly to say
That's not
for your feedback to Kelly. That was obviously very appreciated and that kind of engagement. I guess I'm just interested in how we do report back to community on our plans and what kind of engagement has happened over the years regarding these plans, and if that kind of engagement is factored into our budgeting.
We haven't, actively done a formal report back to, and I'm trying to think back. I know in some places where, and if I use Nature in the City as a bit of an example, you know, there's constant involvement of the community with the delivery of that strategy. So it wouldn't make sense to have like a formal report back. But we do celebrate when we meet milestones with the community. And some of the other ones, like this one, I think, you know, these ones, we Musraby didn't have that mechanism to come back to the community. In Hamilton East, there was a community committee or a group, but I know a lot of those are no longer participants in that group, and I wasn't involved in the Franklin one, so I'm not sure if there was a community group. So I think that's one of the challenges. How do we keep coming back to the community over that longer term? Yeah, I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
And that greater engagement potentially is resourcing and funding outside of council to come in and collaborate. So just encouragement to that kind of work. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Councillor Andrew.
Julie, this is a question of timing, and that the motion is now about having a briefing session before the LTP. And the whole point of this is because of all the changes that are going on in the space with Plan Change 12 and 9 and everything else that's going on. When will those plan changes and everything else be resolved sufficiently that we can even start having a discussion? Because there's no point having a briefing while things are still changing.
I'm going to ask Mark. Do you have an answer for that?
Wave your wand.
Good morning. Hopefully that's on. So through Plan Change 9, we've identified HHAs. Some of those are in commercial precincts, others are not. We've had submissions requesting Frankton be identified as an HHA. So we're now investigating that. You'll be aware that character does not exempt you from intensifying. So that's really where the gap emerges, because simply identifying area as character and implementing new controls over it doesn't cut the mustard anymore. So it has to meet that higher hurdle. And then I would also just say, in terms of area plans, there's been extensive work done. But you'll realise that the MPSUD direction changed and made a lot of that work somewhat redundant in terms of the change in political direction from central government. The coming full circle, so Plan Change 9, as you know, is going to hearings. First tranche in May this year, second tranche in November. It is subject to appeal rights, so it's unlikely to be resolved until the back end of 2024. Although we'd hope for decisions to be released sort of in tranches from hopefully the end of this year into the beginning of next year.
So, Councillor Andrew, maybe I can just add in terms of the other actions in the plan. I think it's appropriate that that does come back to a briefing discussion fairly soon. This is something that's fairly fresh at the moment, and we want to make sure that we progress this opportunity to talk about these plans.
Right. So we might not have any clarity until the end of 2024. But if we're wanting to get budgets into the long-term plan, and we're dealing with that before we've got clarity, we might be having to make some educated guesses, and I'm just thinking about the consequences of that. Versus the consequence of sort of just delaying the whole process until we have that clarity. Have you got any comment on what you would sort of recommend for that, whether we delay things or take a punt on where it's going to end up?
I think it would be really good to have the opportunity to have a discussion with elected members to understand what your direction is in terms of how you want, what your priority is for addressing the outstanding items in these plans. I think that would be really good. Then once we understand that priority, then we can look at what is the mechanism that will be needed to do that. In some cases, we might be able to resolve that fairly quickly. In other cases, we might need to wait until some other things are resolved, like the district plans.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark.
Hopefully I get this question out articulated in a way, in my head I can see it. So kind of following on from Councillor Ewan's point around the tasks completed, if you want to call it that type thing. I'm not sure if that was the kind of the words used, but is there a weighting, help me understand, is there a weighting put on certain tasks within that plan that you report back on? And it might be a little bit of a back up to what Councillor Bida just asked as well. So
I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but if I maybe start answering it and you can help me.
Yeah, I don't even understand it myself.
So when the
prioritisation,
particularly if we talk about these plans, which are more like action plans. So we set. There's a whole lot of actions in there, and traditionally what we have done is, when the plans have been developed, identified those ones that are short-term, sort of medium-term and longer-term, with the view of, in some cases, the short-term actions are funded through your LTP or your annual plan decisions. Those are the ones that have the focus, I suppose, and the reporting back on the delivery of those. The ones that are longer-term, again, we'd move into a new LT. So when I talk about short term, usually talking 1 to 3 years, 3 to sort of 6 years and 6 to 10 years. So when we move into the medium term ones, they would be looked at again as part of the LTP, and again, funding allocated or not for them. So we tend to report through that sort of tranched time frame.
Yep, okay, that makes sense, and you used a couple of good words in there that hit the nail on the head, but I keep thinking of the term fallen through the cracks. It's how do we stop that from happening again?
Definitely, and I think we now have, with the committee structure and the allocations of plans and strategies to committees, I think that will help us make sure we don't do that again.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Madam Chair, I've got a procedural question which maybe the Deputy Mayor could answer, if that's possible.
Yes, definitely.
I'm confused with the motion why there is C still in play. Why would we be retiring the plan before we've gone through E and F? Should C just not disappear? Shouldn't we do E and F and then decide what we're doing?
That's probably a more sensible approach. We can do that. I mean, I have no objection to retiring, because I think the majority of the stuff has been done, but there's some key things that are outstanding. But 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If everyone's more comfortable with that, then I'm happy.
Just from a procedural point, I think it makes sense.
Bit tidier, eh?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's gone. Awesome. Angela, did you have a question?
No,
I was
sorry,
just on. Cool. Councillor Max.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I refer to your first statement that the action plans, those plans for Frankton and Hamilton East were based on the uniqueness of those areas, and acknowledge that, yes, there's change in the environment that you highlighted earlier, but that my understanding is that there's still a lot of real love for the uniqueness of those areas, and that Plan Change 9 will protect parts of what we like about those areas. But what other mechanisms might we have that can give respect and focus to that uniqueness and real, you know, 'cause I mean, those are the things in the city that people come to and like and feel nice and make Hamilton a place they want to come to and live in. Sorry about the speech.
Thank you, Councillor Maxine.
That is a question.
I was about to go questions.
Channeling Martin.
Thank you, Councillor Maxine. And I think what you've enunciated is a question that we've been asking ourselves as staff as well. And so we've been starting to have a conversation between particularly the Grove group where, you know, we have both like Mark and Paul, but we also have some other people in there who are involved in placemaking. So if you look at what we've, you know, that group's managed to achieve with Peacock, creating an identity for a suburb that doesn't even exist yet is a really good example of placemaking. And so we've been having that conversation internally about how do we bring placemaking, identify areas and bring placemaking into the way we think about things. We haven't got an answer for that yet. We're sort of trying to pull a group together to talk about that. And in the report you'll see we talk about placemaking and how we think it's really valuable. So more to come to you on that in the future, I think, is my answer.
Yep, okay. And I guess following up from Councillor Anna with regard to community involvement in that and specifically about Frankton and Hamilton. I know that Hamilton East had your neighbourhood event in recent years. I mean, it's several years ago now that happened. We will have captured some feedback from residents in there. How do you see residents being able to feed into other conversations, perhaps around placemaking and the life of their city?
Yeah, so I think two parts to the answer. First of all, I think this concept about placemaking that we're starting to talk about is really important for the long-term plan. So when we want to have, we want to bring our residents and our communities into the conversations about what's important for them where they live. And so that forms that basis. You know, when you ask people a question, an overall question, you get less of a passionate response than when you ask them about where they live or where they work. So that's really important in the long-term plan. So that's where we're trying to go to with the long-term plan. In terms of these plans, how do we bring the community back into the conversation? So I think the original vehicles that we had, you know, have moved on, but I think this is an opportunity once we decide on where we've landed, an opportunity to share information with the community and tell them about the good things that have happened. So we're telling that positive story about what has been achieved, but also open the opportunity for them to tell us things that are important for them still. And then we'll be able to pull those back as part of the long-term plan discussion as well. So it's, we've talked a little bit with, in terms of the long-term plan engagement, about having these opportunities to, for people to tell us, building on those questions we asked right at the beginning, you know, what do you love about Hamilton and what would make it better? So we want to ask, what do you love about your area and what would make it better? We won't be able to fix all of those things, but it will help us to identify what those things are and have those collaboration or enabling conversations like you're talking about with the Youth Action Plan to help make those things better for our wider community.
And so it would be the intention to have, rather than a huge broad range of topics through a long-term plan consultation, that there be some really specific and personal things that people will feel engaged about and be motivated to participate in the process.
Yes, but based around the strategies that you've already approved. So again, we want to make sure that we keep a focus. You've already committed to the community a number of foundation strategies that you want to deliver, and so we want to be talking to people about what does that look like in their community.
Thank you. Thanks, Max.
No other questions. Angela, Deputy Mayor Angela, has moved and Sarah has seconded. Would you like to speak to it, Angela?
It's 2023, should change it.
Probably does.
Probably does. Look, thanks everyone. I hope that this gets full committee support. I've listened to the discussion and questions and agree with majority of it. However, I think there's a little bit of an overlap. What I'm not talking about is making changes to the district plan. As we heard from staff with the MPSUD, the threshold for heritage is quite high and they're working hard to do that. So hopefully we will protect the heritage properties as much as we can in the city. However, there's no mechanism in there, unfortunately, to identify special character areas. The reason that these plans were first raised and first pushed to put in the district plan was because a city of our size is lucky to have one really special character area. We've got two, quite unique, incredibly important to the development and the foundering of our city. Both of Hamilton East and Frankton are incredibly important to our history. But a little bit critical of, over the years, how we have rolled out this plan. And look, we learn as we go along. Now there is no doubt in my mind that a strategy or a plan that comes in front of council will have funding attached or it won't be accepted. Because I look at this and it frustrates me over the years and has. You know, the only way that Kent Street Pocket Park has received a completed was because just recently I raised it as a result of the market needing to move through lockdown and we managed to move some money around to fund that. So that's not, and that's because there wasn't a quantum envelope of funding when we adopted the plan. In terms of the special, the suburban, what have I called them? Suburban area plans, that it would be my hope that we would be able to protect the character of Frankton and Hamilton East, but also we've heard from our community, Beda, Enderley, Fairfield, Norton, these areas are just left behind. I don't think a suburban area plan is about growth and about infrastructure. It's more than that. It's about how often we mow the lawns and keep the place tidy. I've always said people will treat it how we keep it. You know, it's the broken window syndrome. And I've been complaining as a West Ward councillor for, seriously, 7 to 8 years to get a fence that sits in the middle of the road between the shops on each side of Dinsdale fixed, and it's still not fixed. You know, we don't, and things pile up, graffiti piles up, roller doors come in, the wrong shops come in. So a suburban area plan, I would like to address that stuff. It's not about the district plan, it's not about a growth and planning infrastructure. We've got to do that citywide anyway. It's about the character, it's about the people that live there and giving them some attention that they need, because it is all going to new suburbs, it does all go to Greenfield, and I'm quite frankly tired of it. We need to move the dial. So I'm hoping suburban area plans will do that. I'm going to go for another couple of seconds. In terms of Frankton and, anyone try to stop me, in terms of Frankton and Hamilton East plan, they were a point in time and they were great, but we made a mistake because we didn't fund them. But there are some critical things in here, particularly walking and cycling connections in Frankton. No, that has not been done. So I hope we'll get full support. Sorry for going over time.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Look, I found the last half an hour quite fascinating. It's a perfect insight to the bureaucracy of this organisation, where we have so many plans that we frequently lose track of the plans, and we just as frequently then forget to fund particular projects. And when we rediscover the plan and we blow off the dust, we find that the paradigm has shifted so much that they're no longer relevant. And so it's not surprising that, you know, as an organisation of 29 business units, 1,200 staff, that we frequently find ourselves going around and round and round and producing wonderful reports to sit on desks, and inherently we've got some real systemic problems in how we manage them and fund them. And I don't think we should be particularly proud of that. In some ways, council should decide to do less plans and just deliver on the ones that we do. How about a council that says that if we're going to create a plan, we're actually going to give it some funding? Why create a plan if we have no ability to fund it? Currently, we're creating plans, funding some of it, and then not actually completing the task. So I'm just terribly frustrated, and I'd imagine most ratepayers are going, holy heck, can we not get better outcomes as a result of from our local government? So I'm pleased with ultimately the motion we've got. At least we're not running off and retiring the plans until we've had a broad discussion about what we're going to do next. But I would really challenge staff and elected members. Could we have a period of having less plans and actually implementing and funding the plans we do have? Wouldn't that be amazing? And if we turned all the resource that we currently have running around producing new plans into just actioning ones that we've prioritised, wouldn't that be a wonderful outcome?
Thanks. We will go to Zoom. Councillor Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, I've got some sympathy for Councillor O'Leary's addition to the motion here. There's no doubt, that things have changed over that time. I'd look at Hamilton East, and since the plan was formulated, we've got a pedestrian cycle bridge approved, and the connections to Memorial Park. We've got 2 new blocks of apartments. We've got the Maid Market thing planned as well, or underway. So things have changed, and obviously the planning paradigm has changed completely with this stupid one-size-fits-all mentality coming in, which we need to fight. So, but despite that, there are things, there was a speaker in the last debate who suggested that plans were basically done. Well, they're not. There are outstanding things, and they do deserve some attention. They do deserve a wash-up, at least, because they've been sitting around. So I'm keen for them to be addressed in a discussion. I have sympathy also with the suburban area plans that Councillor O'Leary talks about. I think about Dinsdale as well, or D Block as some of the residents call it on the Facebook page. But I suppose my only concern with these suburban urban plans is if we're going to do them, we'd need to do them well, we'd need to fund them and all that type of stuff. So it's a good idea. I'm just not sure, we either do it well or we don't do it. But anyway, yeah, so I'm going to support this today because I want to see a final wash-up of this Hamilton East and Frankton plans. Thanks.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly add just an acknowledgement to Deputy Mayor Angela. I know that you've been a champion in the space, especially for Frankton, over many years, and I'm sure that the locals are very appreciative. So that's just a thank you. Would you like to say anything else? Okay, we're going to try the voting buttons so then we can see what the Zoomers are doing as well. So we will go to the vote. Is it coming up? Should we just stick with the hands for now? All right, we'll stick with the hands for now. All those in favour? And anyone against?
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. We will take a short break and be back at 11 o'clock on that clock. We've got lots to do. Yep, quick. plus for you all. All right, we will get back into it with item 7. And Helen and Narelle, if you want to. Oh, John.
Morena koutou. I'm familiar with many of you, but for those who don't know me, ko Narelle Wait, tōku ingoa. This is Joe Van Walraven. I'm the policy advisor in the community group, and Joe is the team leader for policy planning and assets. Today we're bringing you the determination report for both the cemeteries and the cultural and recreational facilities bylaws. The purpose of this report is to inform you of the intention to bring the review for these bylaws and also to seek a recommendation to the council to that effect. This is a procedural matter as required by legislation. The reviews are part of programmed work and are funded through existing operational budgets, and the staff recommendation is that these bylaws do remain appropriate for Hamilton City Council. Other than that, I'll take the rest of the report as read, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I will second. Any questions? No? Debate?
Other than to say it's nice to see Narelle back in the chamber momentarily. I thought you were geographically misplaced, but you're clearly in the right seat.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got nothing to add. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour, show of hands. And against?
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to item 8, and we welcome one of our local heroes to present this.
There's a, oh, thank you.
Yeah, God.
That's rather embarrassing, but thank you. And I will accept that on behalf of all of our staff who put in the hard yards, who really did some amazing things. It seems like only yesterday, and it was, that we had this big conversation about civil defence, and against that backdrop, it's not my intention to spend too much time trying to talk about this, so I'm happy to take the report as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
And I will second. Any questions? Questions? No? Yep. And we will move to debate. Councillor Ewan, anything to? No? Deputy Mayor, Angela.
Not attending yesterday. I was dealing with a break-in at my property. But I wanted to also, the fact that I wasn't at that yesterday, I wanted to pass on my thanks as well to Calvin and the team. Some of us probably were wide awake on the night of the storm, watching social media and watching the responses. And we have the benefit of knowing just how incredibly capable our staff are and their involvement in Waikato civil defence. And boy, we got off quite lightly as a city, didn't we? And I also would take this opportunity to send, since the Mayor's not here, our sincere condolences to the firefighting service and the tragedy that occurred in Murawai, and also our thoughts to all of the country that are dealing with the effects of unprecedented a weather event. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thanks, Chair. There's 2 great speeches today, Councillor Angela. Well done. Just to reiterate what was discussed yesterday, and I don't think we need a resolution to do it, and I know Calvin said we'll let the dust settle before we do anything, but I think within the next 90 days through this committee it would be good to initiate some sort of community-wide awareness program from a political lens right down to grassroots, and to make sure our community is ready. And I think you might have mentioned it, Chair Kesh, around the top 5 risks that we have as a city, e.g. bridge stability and things like that, just so that we have a readiness and an awareness because our greatest enemy is complacency and apathy. So really keen to see that implemented within the next sort of 90 days. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have much to add, but just to echo what Deputy Mayor Angela has said, thank you to Calvin and the wider team for the stellar effort that went into the last few days, the last month actually. I want to back what Councillor Ryan has said, and you're right, we will let the team have a slight bit of rest before coming back with some sort of awareness campaign for the community. It was, it shouldn't have been surprising, but you know, to hear that if we did have an earthquake in Hamilton, the first thing would be shut the bridges to check stability. And you know, do we have a plan? Do families have a plan? A lot of people work on either side of the bridge, and you know, there's kids on one end and work on the other. So how does that look practically? So after listening to Calvin yesterday, you know, talking about being prepared and challenging us to say, are you prepared? You know, leaders of Hamilton, are you prepared? So it gave us a lot to think about, and we'd definitely support getting that message out to the wider community. All right, did we have a mover and seconder? It was you and I? Yes. We'll go to the vote. All those in favor, just a show of hands. Any against?
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. All right, we shall move to GM Helen's report.
So just one item in my report, councillors, which is around the City Investment Programme, and we're committed to bringing back to you to inform you the names of the members, the external members of the Leadership Forum. So in addition to the elected member representation on that Leadership Forum, which is Councillor Kesh, Mayor Paula, Councillor Ryan and Councillor Moko, as well as Lance and myself, we have Dennis Turton from Trust Waikato, Chris Joblin from Tainui Group Holdings, Todd Charteris from Rabobank, and Charlotte Chu-En from DTI Lawyers. But we consider that to be a really good mix of interest areas and expertise. So we have our first Leadership Forum meeting next week, and which will be a bit of a meet and greet, but also talking about, you know, aspirations for the city, current projects in progress, and then start to look at how we can really stand up at or enhance our current city investment program, and really start to fund some of those projects using a citywide approach. So very excited about that.
Thanks, Helen. Questions? Angela.
Question. Helen, just reminds me on the process for the group, and brilliant lineup for the forum. Some heavy hitters in there, and I include our elected members, of course. Just in terms of what they prioritise to go out and get funding for, how does that trickle into the forum?
It'll all be mostly through my GM reports, but if there's an actual, you know, if there's something that we need a decision on, we'd bring it here. So no,
okay.
We won't finalise any projects without it coming through this forum.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, great.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I can second. Any other questions? Nope. Debate? I've got nothing to add, so we'll go to the vote. All those in favour, just show of hands. Any against?
The motion is carried unanimously.
Perfect, thank you. All those in favour? Against? And we will move to public excluded. Just give them a couple of minutes.